So we have this awesome panel of founders from very different businesses who've raised very different angel rounds. This is going to be really exciting because so much of being great at raising capital from any source of capital is understanding what it feels like to raise these rounds. And so much has been put into, candidly, from me and others around how to raise from venture capitalists, but not as much has been put into the idea of how to raise from angels, which is why we put this together. I have a couple housekeeping items to go through first, and I want to set the stage before we invite Nick, Larissa, Demian, and Shannon to talk. So we're going to jump right into that. All right. First off, as always in any of my workshops, let's go through housekeeping. So put your cameras on. I'm not the only one that's going to be speaking, and I will tell you from experience, it's much easier to look at people as they're reacting to you as opposed to empty screens. So cameras on, especially when you're asking questions. Be interactive, especially with the panel when it comes up. Don't be shy. Anyone that asks questions will likely get the most out of these, out of this experience. My phone. Take notes. I think we all want to try to make a difference in what you do, and you're not going to make a difference in your process if you're just listening to it and forgetting everything that was shared. And then when you can, share your favorite insights on social. If you tag me, I will do my best to amplify your message. Okay. So that was a quick rush through because, like I said, I think we want to get talking to our guest. If you could mute, that would be amazing. So it doesn't throw me too far off. But the topic that we're covering right now is around angel investment, right? It's people are very curious about this topic right now because of what we're seeing in the market. What I'm seeing in the market is a squeeze on the pre-seed round, as in people want more and more traction before any formal investor decides to step in. That is increasingly the case, which means founders a lot of times need to find capital somewhere to get started, somewhere to get the traction, somewhere to get the product that these pre-seed and seed investors are looking for. And so where does that come from? It comes before pre-seed rounds. It comes before institutional investors. And increasingly, it's more and more money that we're looking for. So that's why I think it's become such an important topic. In order to level set and to understand who we're talking to, I also am going to reference this a little bit later. I want everyone to go through a quick exercise, and then we're going to run a poll against the results. So I want everyone to open up LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn. I'll do this with you. And I want you guys to quickly plug in angel investor up here. Angel investor. And then I want you to click on first degree. Okay. We're going to run a poll. Paige, if you could throw up the poll or let me know if I have to do it.
Yeah, it looks
But
like you have to.
I want you guys, I'm going to throw up this poll. And I want you guys to answer based on how many results you have here. Okay. About half of you have participated. It'd be awesome if you guys could throw it in. We want to get a second. My computer is literally.
Maybe just a quick raise of hands, though. How many of you did not know you could do this on LinkedIn in search? Curious. Okay, quite a few then.
I think that's one of the things that we want to bring out in the session. I'm so sorry. Give me 2 seconds and maybe Paige, you can do a little dance. Actually, hey, do you mind going through and having each of the panelists come on and give 20 seconds on the background of their company, and that's it. I'll be right back.
For sure. Yeah, that's exciting. Maybe since I see Demian right out of the corner of my eye, you can give a quick intro on your company, who you are, maybe a 30-second spiel.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Damian Borba. I'm from Brazil. I live in California. I live here in the US for 17 years. I was in corporate my whole life. I worked for Adobe, PayPal, Intuit, BlackBerry, 6 years at Adobe. And last year I made the decision to go full time with the startup, Pacto. It's quite a journey, and there's a lot to talk about there. And Pacto is a platform for mainly creative professionals to review videos, images, even audio files in a very human, very easy way from your tablet, computer, phones, even the Vision Pro and Meta Quest 3 now. So you can really share your feedback in a way that people can understand. So it's super easy to create that feedback, super easy to understand the feedback. And there's a ton of AI there to list the action items they're created after you review something. And very soon we're gonna be acting on the action items. So the AI will actually like be an agent and act on the action items, fix bugs,
Amazing.
change videos, and all those things.
Perfect. Thanks, Demian.
Sweet. I'm back. Was Demian the only one that went?
Yeah, why don't we bring up the other three real quick and then we'll get into the quick presentation
Yeah.
before
And
the
I
panel.
only caught the end of Demian's, but let's do 15 seconds on each person. Just tell me what it is really quickly so people have the context for this. Let's go with Nick first, please.
Hi, I'm Nick Palufo, co-founder and CEO of Traveler. We're a e-commerce platform for hotels. Think of a Shopify for hotels to keep it simple.
Love it. Larissa, can you tell us about Join?
Hi, I'm Larissa, CEO and co-founder of Join. We're an AI ops platform for growth stage companies who basically do all the work that you don't want to do for you in the background.
Amazing. And is Shannon here? I don't know if Shannon's here yet.
Not yet. She's probably joining towards the panel.
Okay, love it. Thank you guys for bearing with me right there. That was slightly embarrassing, but we're good. Okay, so we just did, everyone I think answered. We got 81 of 98 people. And I'm gonna share this result with you. But one of the big things that we'll talk about is how to find angel investors. And I think a lot of you will be shocked to know how strong your network actually is within angel investors. And that's one of the things that we want to expose today. We'll talk a little bit about process, and then we'll hear from the panelists around how they went around hosting angel investors as well. Okay, so fun thing to start thinking about before we move forward. But I'm going to jump back into this. So when we had you guys register for this workshop, we asked people to submit questions because we want to understand what you all were concerned about. I had already thought about 3 different topics that I'd want to touch on, and it turns out most of the 87 questions that got submitted really fell into these three categories. So a lot of you were asking, what is an angel investor? Not exactly those words. A lot of times it was, how are angel investors different from venture capitalists? How do they make decisions? What do I need to pitch them? But at a high level, it's answered. All these questions are answered if we can better answer what is an angel investor. Okay. Then the second question, which is what that poll was all about, was how do I find them? Do I look for angel syndicates? Do I ask my friends? How do I find them? And then what do angel deals look like? How do we set them out? How do we collect money from angels? These are the 3 main categories. I'm going to spend more time on category 1. I'll touch briefly on 2 and 3. 2 and 3, I think, is going to be really more fun to ask Nick, Demian, Larissa, and Shannon about. Okay. So what is an angel investor? What the question of what is an angel investor is super important, because if you all have seen any of my work within fundraising, especially with the VCs, I always kind of start with this idea of, do you understand the VC psychology of how VCs make decisions? Because once you understand how VCs make decisions, you have a much better sense for how to influence them, how to pitch them, etc. So when we think about what angel investors are, there are 3 categories that I want to throw your way of what an angel investor is and why they're getting into it. Okay. So those three main sort of categories I want to share with you are this idea of total charity, somebody that is just out there who wants to back George because happened to spend time with him in his Nativo days. Really thought he was a good guy, and if he wants to do something, I want to back that. Or Xavier, spent time with him before. I just want to back that. Kind of like not charity, but it's helping a friend. Then there is the category of people of more sophisticated people that have extra money. They've heard the stories of people being early in Uber and getting this huge outcome, but they have extra money. They want to put some of it to work in venture capital, get exposure to that. And then there's this third category of very professional angel, someone that's managing a large pool of personal money, like they would as a formal venture capitalist. Okay, so these are three broad categories that influence the way angel investors make decisions. There's a fourth category that exists, but I want to caution you around the temptation of taking this money. That's dumb money. That's dumb, unsophisticated money, which sometimes can be very much easier to convince to give you money in the outset, but become much more painful to have on your cap table later. These are people that either don't know what it means to run a startup, and so when they make their investment, they think they should be getting some sort of like regular update, even though they wrote like a $10,000 check. Or as your company goes up and down, they get nervous about the money that they invested. In the short term, it might feel very, very tempting to take this money. In the long term, this is almost always more costly than it is worth in terms of including. Okay. So here's some categories to think about. I want to shift this conversation much more to the idea of how these people make decisions. Okay. I'm going to ask our panelists to maybe weigh in on some of this, but here are some categories of how angel investors make decisions. And I kind of think about it possibly in this stack ranked order, not exactly, but in an angel investor's mind, I think a relationship is maybe one of the more important things. If not direct relationship with the person asking for money, then a relationship with somebody who introduced the deal to them, right? These are investors who have money to give, but aren't spending time analyzing the market. They don't know exactly what's going on. So their relationship has a big influence on how they make decisions. The second thing that everyone needs to understand is the momentum of the deal and credibility. How much the shiny wrapper of this deal, whether it's because the founder went through Techstars or the founder did XYZ, or the fact that a bunch of other angels have already invested. There's a lot of superficial push around momentum and credibility that has a big impact on angel investors, the same way it has an impact on venture capitalists. And then further down the road is analysis. I would say analysis is something that is much more reserved for institutional investors, for actual venture capital investors. Some angels will do a little bit of analysis, but I think it's a very small piece. And then, of course, we always have to think about that idea that there is like there's a light veneer, there's a light covering and sprinkling of charity and just wanting to help some people that I think enter in most angel investors' minds. One of the things I always tell people about the idea of an angel investor is that angel investors, that term comes from Broadway back in the day, where people would actually put money into Broadway shows, not expecting any money to come back, but just being an angel to support these bits of art. That term has been pulled over to startups. And so there's always going to be this little bit of charity associated with angel investors. Important. Now, I essentially did this full education part of the angel investor workshop and panel to make sure we underline this one realization. And I know this is the case because I know, based on the responses of our panelists on how they collected their money, that they fell into this trap a little bit too. It is very true that angel investors are easier to convince in a lot of cases than venture capital firms. You can catch an angel who happened to have gone to UVA, like I did and love UVA basketball. And if we get on part of our conversation where we hit on that, there are just good feelings, good vibes. And they're like, you know what? I think I want to back this guy. I don't really know why. Like maybe he's not building a big business, but I want to back this guy. There is that feeling of charity of, Yadina comes from Romania as well, and I want to back Romanian founders. I just want to do it in a broad basis, so I'm going to back Yadina here. This is extremely true, and it makes sense. But that reality drives founders to make the most common mistake in fundraising with angels that they should not do, which is that means that you all will go after angel investors piecemeal, one by one, and hope that they make a decision to invest in you, one by one, by one by one. The thing about this slide is I showed this slide to founders getting ready to raise from venture capital. It's even more important with venture capitalists because on an island, it's very hard for them to make the right decision, which is invest in you. Angels, it's more likely that they will make a decision to invest in you. But if you want to maximize the potential of raising from angels, you should be running a process too. If you actually bundle your raise with angel investors, as in do research to try to find what angels you could go after and have them be a part of a process where you're talking to a bunch of angels at once and you can tell them that other angels are investing, they're all coming in. They will feel a momentum and they will feel a sort of not only pressure, like scarcity pressure, but also that credibility of, I don't know what I'm doing, right? I don't make a ton of angel investments, but if Paige said that, a few people are doing this deal alongside of me, if Anastasia talks about other people coming in, that makes an angel feel much more comfortable about putting money to work. And so on the process side of things and how you actually convince angel investors, I want to make sure you guys think about this concept, which we're not going to go into huge amounts of detail today but it's this idea of calendar density. It's the idea of if you think you're going to go raise a round of angel funding and you have some time to prepare for it, do not go piecemeal, do not go one by one. Research who you want to talk to first, and then try to run a process where you're talking to all the angels at once. Okay. Obviously, there will be some bleeding along the edges. It's not going to all be perfect. But if you can at least get yourself to push in an organized fashion at the beginning, I guarantee you your conversations with angels will have more positive outcomes. Okay. So that's the first topic that I want to make sure we covered. Next, how do you find angels? Okay. We did an initial little exercise for you to go into LinkedIn in order to find just the term angel investors. Now, other people ask me like, well, what about my company that's in beauty? Or what about my company that's in AI? Or what about my company that's in fintech? And what I'll tell you is the LinkedIn search is a very powerful tool that I want to make sure everyone at least knows the high level of how to use. And on top of the angel investor search result that you can go through, you can add other terms. Like you can see that I've already been doing this to test it out. Let's say I have a company in the climate space. I'm just putting angel investor in climate in the hopes that people in my network are self-identifying as an angel investor. And then somewhere else in their profile, they are adding something that indicates that they're interested in the space I'm interested in, right? So if I did angel investor and HR, for example, like Larissa might be interested in that, right? So who is she? She has a bit of an HR ops platform tech, so angel investor, and maybe somebody that have done some stuff in HR in the past would be more likely to think about our business. So at a high level, I want to make sure people know the power of LinkedIn to be searching. So how do you find angels? You are probably directly connected to way more than you think. And if you were to go to the second degree connection, as in angel investors that your network is connected to, that number will explode. Okay. How else do you find angels? Does anyone else want to throw in some ideas into the chat? I want to see if people actually have a good sense for what they can do. School alumni, Twitter. Yeah. So there are a bunch of communities to go through. Networking events. So this is the one that came up that sounds the least sophisticated is the one that I've been waiting for, which is what Idina said. Idina said, ask around, ask your friends. That seems extremely unsophisticated, but what you'll find is that angels tend to find other angels. They hang out with people that also angel invest. I always tell people like angel investing is a really expensive country club to join. It's kind of what people do in the tech circles. They pay $25,000 to angel invest in Nick so that they can tell people I angel invest, right? And when they do that, they end up connecting with other people. So very important to be asking around, very important to be asking your network, very important to be asking other angel investors that you've already connected with. Hey, are there other angels that you know that you think might be interested in hearing from me? Okay. So that's lightly on where to find angels. Again, we're going to have our panelists talk through some of this later. But I wanted to go to the last portion, which is structuring an angel raise. Okay, this was one of the bigger questions. What do we use? Do we use a post-money cap safe? Do we use something else? Do we use a price round? How do we do these things? I have a quick soapbox around valuation that not everyone will align with out in the world. But I want to tell you how I think about structuring an angel fundraise as well as valuation, how you find valuation. So I think structuring it, you want to do the simplest thing possible. I think YC has done a good job of creating it safe, formalizes and sort of normalizes a certain structure. One big call out there is that if you're using a post-money cap safe, post-money cap safe have anti-dilution in them. So if you continue to raise multiple rounds on multiple safes after your friends and family angel round, that safe will continue to be more and more punitive to you. I'm not going to go through all the details on that, but Paige, if you could send through the article on post-money cap safes, that'd be very helpful. So that's the first thing. That's not telling you to necessarily not use a post-money cap safe. It's just to remember that in this round, which is going to be the lowest valuation cap you likely raise against, you continue to raise safes after that low round could really hurt you in the future. And the second thing I want to tell you around valuations and structure is when it comes to valuation, you should really, really understand that the people that are angel investing in you, like the first money into your company, are taking on incredible risk alongside of you. And some of them are your personal friends and your family members, people that are just supporting you at the very beginning of your journey. And because of that, I really don't like it when I see founders trying to maximize valuation at this round. You know, they're like, see some people doing it at an 8. I think I can convince my grandmother to take a 10 million post money valuation cap. It's just not the way to think about it, right? Like I saw people doing uncapped stakes for their friends and family rounds, and it just like doesn't feel great to me. This is my soapbox speech to you guys. When you're raising your friends and family round, is you probably aren't going to be raising a gigantic round anyway, a few $100,000. And so even if you were to put the valuation at a lower valuation, the amount of dilution that you take on there is not going to be the thing where people are like, oh my God, like Malika doesn't own a lot of her company because she did $300,000 at a 3 cap or a 4 cap or whatever. That's not going to be why you don't own enough of your company. And I guarantee you, you're going to feel way better when your company is hugely successful. And the people that believed in you in the very, very beginning win with you as well. Lastly, like, it's so much easier to get people to go along with you when you have a reasonable valuation cap. And the momentum from going from a $3 million angel friends and family round or $5 million friends and family round to then going to raise a pre-seed at 8 or 10, it's so much better than being like, oh, I'm sitting at a $10 million friends and family round. They note, now I need to go raise my first institutional round. And people are like quoting me between $6 and $10 million caps anyway. Yeah. So that's the first thing on valuation and structure. The second thing that I wanted to call out, because I just did an article about this, is how to collect angel checks. So collecting angel checks is like a very finicky thing, right? Like you're trying to get someone who hasn't done this before to wire a certain amount of money, $10,000, maybe if you're lucky, $50,000 or more. There are documents that they need to review, all this stuff. Because of that, I wrote an article about the concept of roll-up vehicles, which is a way to collect checks from angel investors in a very streamlined fashion, where if you were to collect multiple small checks, let's say 50 small checks, they get bundled under one line item on your cap table. So that's the advantage of using a roll-up vehicle after the fundraise. Before the fundraise, it might be even more powerful, because if I'm talking to David Abrams and he's interested in investing in me, and we're like getting to a point where it's like, yep, I'd love to invest $10,000. You go, great. Let me send you the link to the investment vehicle. It's like an e-commerce checkout flow. It's super clean. It has the gravitas of, hey, this deal is coming together. It feels like it's fully structured. They can click through information on it, and it's just like a checkout process, as opposed to in a normal basis, you'd be like, okay, let me send you the doc. Let me send you the YC note, the YC safe. Let's have you read through it. Okay, can you wire your check to me? And what's your bank account information? It's super painful. I highly recommend you guys read through the roll-up vehicle article that I wrote to learn more about it. Again, we don't have tons of time spent here, but you can reach out to our team later, follow up. One other thing is, as I wrote that roll-up vehicle essay, and as I started planning this event, AngelList actually reached out to me. They didn't influence the writing of that post. They also didn't influence the creation of this workshop, but they said they'd like to support anyone trying to raise on roll-up vehicles. So if you guys are thinking about it, you should register for AngelList using this link. AngelList is trying to figure out ways to give our community more VIP benefits. The only one we could secure, well, not the only one, the one that we could secure this time around was 5 slots of VIP support, which cost a couple $1,000s, I believe. The first 5 slots will get AngelList VIP support for free if you do it through this link. And then the other thing to note about the way roll-up vehicles work is that it does cost money to use, but not upfront. So you don't actually pay money to set up the roll-up vehicle, which is kind of nice. So like, if it doesn't work out and you don't collect the money, you don't owe anything. It's only if you actually do the whole round. Okay. But the high level is, so structure wise, we talked about valuation. We talked about safes. We talked about how to take care of your friends and family. And then now I'm talking about keeping your cap table clean. You will benefit from this tremendously, especially as your company gets later and later stage. Okay. Usually I like to have the informational parts of my workshops have a little bit more breathing, have a little bit more interaction. But I wanted to just make sure that I put those 3 main things to talk about on the table before introducing our founder panel and jumping around and asking questions to them. We're going to do some brief questions and loop them in. But I think the most value is going to be out of getting you all to ask questions and having a little bit of interaction with me involved. Okay, so Paige, if you could help me spotlight me, Larissa, Demian, and Nick, that would be really amazing. Okay. All right. Let's see. Are you spotting? There we go. So, Nick, I wanted you to talk a little bit. Oh, hi, Shannon. Before we go, we had Demian introduce himself, Nicholas, and Larissa. Shannon, do you mind just giving just 20 seconds on what Esker is? You don't need to tell us, just tell everyone.
Hi, I'm Shannon Davenport. I'm the founder of Esker Beauty. We are a prestige bath and body brand that focuses on the skin below your chin.
Love it. I love that tagline. It always sticks in my brain.
That's
I kind of wanted to go through, yeah, I wanted to go through each of you and quickly talk a little bit about where you sourced your angels. Like, how did you find them? Was it a specific process, or was it kind of piecemeal and just asking your network? Because Nick, you had a very quick answer in the survey that I sent you. How did you start?
Where we got, so where we ended was people that I knew, and well, most of them were people that I knew and that I had worked with before and kind of, knew my track record. There were a couple of introductions, including the VC, which came in our second tranche, and another, let's say, professional angel, I guess. There was an introduction from someone else. Everyone else was people that I knew to some degree. But
What's your primary network?
um,
Did
well,
you ask them for introductions to another layer of angels, or was it all just like your first degree connection?
I've only asked introductions to very few. Most of them I was actually going to them themselves, and in some cases that I knew that there was an opportunity or it was adequate, right, to ask for an intro. I did that, and I was surprised, right?
Awesome. Okay, Larissa, what about you? This, I feel like your direction might have been very different. So, how did you source your initial set of angels to talk to?
Yeah, initially I went really hard on cold outreach. So I used a lot of like LinkedIn search. I was specifically focused on angels with an operating background. So whether they're like head of biz ops, COO, chief of staff, so could relate to the problem. The one thing that's hard with cold outreach is just you don't know who's actually deploying. So a lot of people say they're angel investors, but they're not actually investing. But they often might know angels that are investing because a lot of angel investors are part of communities because they're trying to figure out how to raise. So usually I was like, okay, I know you're not deploying, but would you introduce me to angels that could be a fit? Also, two of them became customers. So even though they couldn't deploy, they actually started using our company, which is giving us money in a different way on like SaaS contracts. And then yeah, so usually one angel knows a lot of angels. We had one angel, he introduced us to like 20, and at like 75% ended up investing in us. So always like
Wow.
having them like expand, I would say helps. So yeah, kind of, and then also warm intro. So we went through Techstars and they have a huge mentorship network. So honestly, that helped us a lot to get a foot in the door with angels. But yeah. And yeah, he invested in Vel as well. So he was like kind of our domino pin that like made all the other angels come in.
Nice. Yeah, and I think what you said underscores one of the points that I made about angels roaming around in packs. Not only do they roam around in packs, but like they're kind of like looking to their left and their right, and they try not to make a decision themselves. Much like, honestly, much like later stage investors. But angels, even more. It's like if my buddy Demian and my friend Shannon both invested, well, sure, you know. And so these can be big unlocks as you find certain nodes. Shannon, in particular, I wanted you to talk a little bit about the different sources of angels that you found because you happen to list out a few things, whether they be angel networks or syndicates. So, what did you find as good sources for you?
Yeah, so I have a CPG company, obviously in beauty and personal care. Um, and in CPG, I think you tend to find a lot of angels that if they invest in CPG, like do so across different CPG companies. But and I found that a lot of angels typically tend to find like an area that they like and they invest deeply in that area. So I went through an accelerator as well called SKU, which is based in Austin, and it's a CPG accelerator. So that was kind of, I would say, the first opening point to mentors, and then mentors also can become angels. So that was one way. The other way, and I might be different from some people on this panel, but I've raised primarily from female angels. Um, and I think it's really interesting that female angels, like that, they're 30% of angel, 37% of angel investors now are women, and a lot of them are just getting started as angel investors. And so, oh, 90%. Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of it has been for me personally, networking with other female founders and finding some of these prolific female angels, and then syndicates. So a lot of them will run syndicates on AngelList, also on Sidecar is another one. So yeah, I think finding people that, like, and I think because funding is so much harder for women from VCs statistically, it's a really great and exciting place for female founders to look for capital, but also for our investors to be able to open up a new potential revenue stream for them and kind of let them in on some of the wealth being created in this asset class.
Super fun. That's super helpful to hear. And then lastly, Demian, anything different from you? How have you found your
Oh,
angel?
yeah, no, mine was like way different. I would say a lot of similarities in like the results, but how I ended up there was very different, right? I think
Hmm.
I took your amazing course in, I think it was November, right? And we came up with a list of VCs, a list of angels, and I just started reaching out to everyone. I made progress with VCs, progress with angels, but things were always looking better with the angels that we were speaking with. Like I had a lot of VC meetings, and some of them I had like 4 or 5 rounds of in-person and like online interviews. And at the end, they're like, oh, maybe not now. But with angels was very like people that knew me more, it was always better. And I came up with this strategy of finding strategic angels. So the way I present the round is I'm looking for strategic angels, and we're just closing with this big guy from Pixar that's like was there for 20 years, worked with Steve Jobs, because I presented in a like this is a strategic angel opportunity. Do you want to join? And but it's a lot harder than no matter how good your planning is, it's how bad you want it in the end, right? And yeah, just keep pushing.
It's great to hear. I mean, there are a lot of vectors into finding angels, but we are hearing the same thing, which is like their decision criteria is very different from VCs, and it can be much easier to hit on somebody that just kind of sees you as a founder, feels your energy, and wants to take a chance on this. And I think like what you found, Demian, is maybe what I led off this presentation around, which was the market dynamics are shifting in a way where I think VC is overcorrecting in the wrong direction, but the pre-seed investor tranche is not taking the bet that they should be in the past, which is like we want to invest in something that is very nascent, but we believe in the idea, we believe in the founder. That that tranche of investing is just like we want to see more, we want to see more, we want to see more, and it's like, well, how do I get there before I can show you that? So the angels are what we're talking about, what we're focused on. Okay, there's a kind of a Nick, please.
Yeah, and just a quick story on that. I did, the same thing as Damien. I started with, I won VCs and spin my wheels like crazy. Talk, 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 talk. And it was so funny the other day. And I don't know if you guys saw that Twitter that, half of VCs are pretending and then this and this and this. And then you get like three out of a
Yeah.
million they started with. So I didn't know if I would cry or laugh when I saw that, but it was pretty much my story. And because we ended up breaking our fundraise in trenches, right? So one thing that I learned that, learned from you, Jason, and then from RVCs is reframing the story, repackaging things makes a massive difference, right? Because our VCs say that VC is a momentum trade, right? So that momentum and creating that on people's minds. But the point I'm trying to make is there was no way we could get a pre-seed investor at the very beginning because they're always moving the goalposts. They want to see something else and this and that. And because we broke it into tranches, we were able to get a VC on the second tranche, right? There was already some money, there was already something going on, there was a product, etc. So it was just that, a little bit necessary for them to, okay, I'm willing to make a bet, right? So getting that on day zero would have been extremely difficult, as it was.
Super helpful to hear. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to say similar experience, like just VCs taking a really long time, requiring a lot of stuff. And I just, as a solo founder, I really don't like wasting time having meetings on meetings on meetings. And angels, like they're also busy people who typically like are also entrepreneurs or they have full-time jobs or whatever. So it's really nice to, by the time you have a call with an angel, they're not just like sitting around like booking their calendar with, you know, with meetings with founders. Like they have a pretty clear intention if they want to talk to you. So it's really, I found very similar process to you.
Awesome. I want to throw out an open question for everyone, and then we'll start sourcing questions from the audience. But I wonder if any of you, feel free to jump in, can talk about the impact of momentum from your angels as it impacted other angels, as well as some of you were able to lock down some more formal venture capital dollars. Is that something that you could feel happening? And can you say a few words around like what it was like and what you didn't expect or what happened?
Yeah, I can get started. So I think momentum is everything. It's everything, right? It's you go from this misery of not knowing, having unclear answers and feeling like you're drowning, and then all of a sudden something happens, right? It's a client, it's a first investor, whatever, right? There might be different triggers for different people, but you sort of find a narrative and you see that things are moving, and then someone makes a bet. When that someone makes a bet, you get excited, and then you always have to, be careful with your emotions, but you try to wrangle the next one, and then, you have two, and then two is like so much more powerful than zero. And then getting to three is so much easier, and then so forth and so on. And then I think managing that, excitement, misery, trying to wrangle people in the right direction at a certain pace that you don't lose anybody along the way, that is what's so important. And again, one thing that I took from your course, but again, it's a momentum trade, and momentum is everything, in my humble opinion.
Love it. Yeah, Demian.
Yeah, no, same thing. It's funny. Like when you get this big confirmation that there's one investor there, then it's almost like you get excited, then you ping the other that are similar. I'll jump in. It's always like this crazy momentum. But one thing that I think it's really important to highlight is that in my experience, for example, this Pixar guy, I had two meetings via Zoom and they were okay. And then last week I went to San Francisco to meet him in person. That made a huge difference. So I think meeting people in person is night and day. So if you can avoid like online meetings, please do, because it's very, very different.
Yeah, it's a relationship game. Anything else? I know Shannon and Larissa, you focus a lot on female investors. Do you feel like obviously they react to you differently, but do you feel like the sort of investor psychology is the same, or when you like meet men and women? And I think that's a relevant topic to share.
I think, well, for me, like the the whole process of angels, again, because it's like someone's personal money, it's much different than raising from a fund, right? And so I take it really seriously when I take someone, like you were saying about like having some crazy valuation, like for your grandma, like I take it seriously that I'm taking somebody's savings or their whatever, and they're giving that to me and entrusting me to grow it. And so it is kind of inherently a more personal relationship. And I think because angels also, they're doing this because they want to level up in their career, or they want to network, or they want to like learn businesses better or start to advise businesses. Like there's a lot of different reasons, or just create wealth. There's a lot of different reasons that angels start to do this. But what I've noticed, like in terms of momentum, is that it's a really big advantage because they will advocate for you like crazy. And so if you get tapped into these like super angels or connectors, or even just like people that work in your industry, um, they, I think it's like, a lead investor or a VC will do that too, maybe, but when you're talking about, one person making up half of your raise versus like 5 or 10 people that are connected, like suddenly you've got a lot more people to call on to like create that momentum, create that urgency, to create that excitement. And so it takes longer to add those little checks up, but you also kind of have, one of the things, Jason, that you talk about is the idea of angel army. And I think you meant that internally as like an internal way of thinking about it. But I actually tell my angels angel army, I say that, and they love it. I think they like the idea of like, yeah, we really all believe in this brand and we're going to go out there like an army and like make this happen. And so, um, just bringing people in with the idea of like, hey, you are one of my early advocates and you are part of my little army strategy of like going out and bringing other strategic people in or connecting you with partners or whatever. I just find that it's a really different way of creating momentum on its own. It's like instead of one big push, it's like a lot of smaller pushes.
Love that. Larissa, any additional thoughts before we open up some questions?
Yeah, I would say in terms of angels, I didn't really notice like a difference in terms of process of scrutiny between men and women in angels. VC is very different, even though I will say some of the worst calls I've had were women VCs. Like absolutely the worst, the most predatory terms. So anyone that says, "Oh, you're a woman founder, is this funds for you now? Your problems are solved," it's bullshit. Anyway, but that's like a different story. But with angels, I would say the one thing that has been different with like our women angels, I think because they understand the uphill battle, whether it was because they've, climbed the leadership ranks in their companies or they founded companies, like I'm constantly on their mind. Like it's like a constant stream. And it's like, I met this person at the event and I think you should talk to them. Or I think this could be a good customer. I think so. They constantly bring me up to people and make connections for me. And that's been like nonstop. I think with some of the male angels, it was like the initial like push of like I know all these people and like they connected me, but I feel like with the women it's been like really really constant and they've been like really strategic, really considerate. Like just today one of our angels introduced us to like 2 angels that she met at an event last week and she was like, I love this company. So I think like that's kind of been the big difference in terms of like women and male angels. But otherwise with the male angels, I didn't, with some of the VCs as women founders, you get more scrutiny. You feel like, your competency is questioned, like people are really risk averse. I didn't have that with the men, but also a lot of the men we raised from like lived this problem. And I think that made it really different. Like they are high ranking operators at companies that are like, yes, please like save me. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on women and men angels.
Love that. Okay. Michael Galilpo had asked a question that I think a few people actually threw in, which was how you set terms. Michael, do you wanna come off mute and join us? See if we can find you here, Michael. Or not?
It looks like I can't add
asked.
him as
Oh,
a
there we go.
spotlight. Yeah.
Okay, I'll replace.
Okay.
Oops, fuck. Well, just lost everyone else. Michael, yeah, can you ask your question, kind of like give it a little bit more context?
Sure. Like super straightforward. Who set out the terms? I've spoken to some angels, and I guess lesser, or I think Jason referred to them as dumb money. They, talking to an Orange County guy that worked at Oracle in the '80s. He tries to give me a Shark Tank deal. Other people, I think are a bit, up in Silicon Valley, up here in San Francisco, seem to be, a bit more savvy. So, who set the terms? How did you then justify those terms as you went from angel to angel? So, were you giving different safe terms, different caps for different people? I'm sure they're going to talk at some point. So, maybe just start there. who set the terms? How'd you negotiate that?
Awesome. Anyone can chime in. I have my own thoughts, but anyone else can chime in.
So on our end, it was a little interesting because we went through Techstars. So we did like a first tranche that was like preferred terms. So it was like we did a 5 million post 15% discount for a subset of the race just for angels that come in early. And then it was always with the disclaimer, once the terms are set by a VC, we're changing it. So we actually then had everyone move to the 8 million post and 15% discount. But it was like this window where it was like, hey, you're coming on preferred terms. We know you're taking a risk. We want you to benefit from coming in early. And we made a decision on how much money are we okay to raise on those terms so we're not hurting our dilution. So we have like this pro forma cap table. We're mapping out all the tranches. So it's like, okay, once we're heading X amount of money on this valuation, we need to like up the valuation so we don't hurt ourselves. But that was kind of, again, leveraging the Techstars fundraising momentum or like the Techstars momentum in general, and then like making people feel special because they are. But yeah, once the investor set the terms, our lead investor, everyone came in on those terms after that.
Anyone else that set their own terms without a third, like without Techstars momentum, Nick?
Yeah. So in our case, I've always set the terms. I've always tried to find the simplest across the board, same same terms for everyone. It's a bit of touch and go, like trying to grasp as much information from the market of what's going on today as well. And I think to your point before of thinking of who we're talking to. So again, we have this unusual 2 now soon to be 3 tranches of the same round. And when we first raised, I think it was 10 million post. And then soon after, we realized that A, we didn't raise as much as we wanted. B, we decided to, as a result of that, do a pivot. And then we went back to them and said, guys, we think this is too expensive. We didn't raise as much money and we're going to pivot. So we're giving you an option to walk away, or we're giving you a discount. So now it's going to be 8 million post. They all stayed, they all appreciated. And then the subsequent round, which was, I think, a year and something, almost a year and a half after that, we raised on the exact same terms because the market was very different, right? It just continued to deteriorate. And now we're going to raise a little bit more under that same and then be done. But I think it's trying to listen to the market and be confident in the sense that you're being fair, right? Not trying to optimize, but also not, giving away the farm on day one, because that's going to make it impossible to raise funds later on, right? So it's essentially trying to balance short-term needs with long-term viability.
Michael, I want to give you a way of, Shannon, you have a thought on this?
Oh, I was just going to say again, Nicholas, I sounds like my process was very similar, but I think in terms of valuation and setting the terms, like I would just say, especially with an angel, if there's somebody that's trying to like give you a bad deal or beat you up on valuation, that is probably not an angel that you want to work with. I've really never had, and I feel like my valuation's fair and I can explain it and back into it. And I have had VCs like want to negotiate the valuation because again, the market tells you the ultimate price, even if you start the conversation or you anchor it with your valuation. But I do think like at the end of the day, I've never had an angel like have really any issues with my valuation. I think I would think twice about wanting to work with them if that had happened.
Yeah, the way I wanted to sort of organize the information that you're hearing from Larissa, Nick, and Shannon for everyone, but you, Michael, is it all comes down to being able to justify the valuation. At the very earliest times in your first deal ever with the very first angel that you talk to, you have very little that you can like glom onto except for doing research, right? You can go around and say like, look, I went around, I saw all the deals that are getting done. It sounds like a lot of people are doing deals in this range, right? And as long as you can put a story around that, you should be able to justify and push towards a valuation that's fair. The moment more people come in, then you get to add to that story, right? You get to say, I've looked at the market. Not only that, but Larissa and Shannon both joined the same syndicate at these terms. And then once you get something like Techstars to join, then all of a sudden the justification for where your valuation is landing gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's kind of the case of valuation at any stage. But the trick of getting it started in the very beginning is probably what you're asking about. To me, I would go out to the market, look for other firms, other companies that you think have gotten funded in your space, and then take into account what I said, which is like, look, we're trying to create a fair valuation for the angels that jump in right now. Okay.
Well, I was under the assumption that it's really like this money goes to getting to this milestone. This milestone will equal a certain amount of revenue. That revenue, discounted cash flow, whatever, really backs into like, okay, well, the company is going to be valued at that point at that time. So I've been given some advice that to try and get the first investor in, you give a discount per that, that cap, and then other people don't get that cap. So, I guess it's just, yeah, I've heard.
It's possible, but what you're talking about, when you start talking about discounting cash flows, you're talking about multiples for a company that isn't even like, probably doesn't even have a product at this point. So it's like the amount of false specificity that is involved in something like that is like so far beyond how valuations in the early stages actually happen. I would not go in that direction. The price of anything, whether it's a company or a widget, is whatever someone's willing to pay for it. And once you understand that, under that sort of psychological concept, you can start anchoring into being like, well, we just need to tell the right story that gets people to believe in whatever valuation. Sometimes it might be like a technical and money thing, but for most people in this space, I don't believe that that's how angel investors will be most convinced to do a deal. And then the last thing I'll say on this, and maybe we do one more question, I know we're at the hour, is this is not a black and white playbook of how to do valuation. It's kind of like feel based too, right? Larissa described a very specific situation where she was able to point to a Techstars deal coming in and then put a discount against something else in the future because those were tangible valuations that were coming out. So she could do something that sounded a little bit similar to the strategy that you were given. I think it's much harder to do that at the very earliest stages where you're like, look, the next valuation we get is going to be $50 million. We're going to give you a 90% discount. Like, do I believe in that as an angel? I don't know. Like, can you tell that story that actually says that, that future valuation is going to happen? If you can, then maybe giving a discount will work. But if you can't, like you might have to take a very different tack. Hopefully that makes sense. By the way, I can stay an extra 15. I know, especially the CEOs on this panel who were very generous in sharing their time. You guys, if you have meetings, please don't feel like you should stay. But if you feel like this is fun for you and you want to answer more questions about your experiences, would love to keep you on. And by the way, I can also answer these questions relatively well, given my exposure to these deals. So let's see. Any other questions that Paige? I don't know if you saw any that was important.
Jason, there's a question I saw in the chat that I really wanted to answer.
Please. Oh, yeah. And the rest of you, if you see those too, I would love for you guys to pick the ones.
Okay, because
go ahead.
I have so many thoughts about this.
Do you want to call the person up, by the way?
Sure. Yeah. Scarlett, if she's still here.
Scarlett, are you still here?
I'm still here. Let me come up.
Hi, Scarlett, can you? Yeah, I would love. Amazing. What was the question?
Well, you can. Yeah, you say your question.
Yeah. It was. Let me read my question. I've been. What's my question? My legal team was pretty adamant, and obviously there's some context about what's gone on already on our cap table, but they were adamant about avoiding having too many small investments come in and take up space on the table prior to raising venture capital. And that's a hard balance to strike. I get a lot of offers from friends and family, things like that, for 10 to 15K, and we're kind of putting them on hold. They're saying no right now in favor of a larger raise from, say, an angel network, which is my preference, but I'd love to hear from other people about how to balance that. And I saw somebody said you can set up an RUV, and I'm seeing other people chiming in, but that's the question.
Yeah. I heard that advice too back in the day, and I did what you did and said, no, I have a 25K check minimum. And I regret that. I really regret that. Because in my opinion, it really is, I mean, we're talking about angels right now. It's primarily from my perspective, like, you're not going to get multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in general from angels. You're going to be picking them up 25K, 50K. So really, and it's more work to get angels, frankly. So from my perspective, the whole bigger picture strategy here is extracting value from people as well as money. And so there's going to be people who, for whatever reason, maybe they're remodeling their kitchen, but they're like a badass person that you want to know. And they're like, well, I can come in with 10K. I would always, I mean, and it depends on the person, but if it's a person you want to work for, I mean, there's a lawyer that I'm trying to get on my cap table for 5K. And I was like joking to my husband because I was like, I'll pay her 5K to be on my cap table because she's like a lawyer with a ton of experience in my space. Like I can run up a 5K bill with a lawyer pretty freaking fast. But to have somebody like that on my cap table on speed dial, like that's a lot of value. So like, I had people early on that I think would have come on at 10, 15K. And I was like, no, and it's just like, that's like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That's like a 2021 piece of advice. It's like, yeah, that's really nice in theory if you can get everybody to come on at 25K. I don't know why I have balloons coming off of me right now. Um, but but yeah, I just like, and sometimes there's like famous investors or so, and like the really messed up thing is sometimes you'll hear some of these celebrities that are investors and they literally will come onto someone's cap table with like $1,000 or $5,000. And that's fine. And people say yes, because it's like, it's just a paperwork thing. Like you'll figure that out then. But really, it's about, do I want to? And somebody said here, like, it's a line on your Excel sheet. Yeah, like it is. So it's, sometimes lawyers, like, I think in their best efforts, like, try to advise us on, like, hey, this would be nice in a perfect world. But I'm also like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to say no to 10K or 15K at any given time, especially if it's from someone I want to work with. So I would take that with a grain of salt. I feel like that's like good 2021 advice, but not so much 2024 advice.
Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, what they're probably referencing as lawyers is post-closing those multiple small checks. There are a lot of things that you'll have to do within your company that requires investor consent. And even raising more money will require will require you to reach out to each of your investors and sign off on the deal. And literally, if these people aren't signing, it can like hold up the deal, which as you get to 20 and 30 and 40 investors can actually, and there are always horror stories that the lawyers will point to. This is actually the key sales point of a roll-up vehicle because it allows you to take the smallest check possible and doesn't give you that administrative overhead. You can literally take $1,000 check. And I'll tell you, I actually love the idea of setting rules. Like I have this concept of setting rules and breaking them because you can go out there and be like, well, we have a 25K minimum, we have a 25K minimum. And someone comes in and says, Scarlett, I really want to invest, but I really can only invest 10K. And you go, we have this rule, but you're amazing. You're awesome. We'd love to let you in. Honestly, a 1K check could end up being way more valuable to Shannon's point than a 100K check. Maybe they have the network, maybe they have skills that you need, but I would highly recommend you go back and reconsider the small check strategy. Cool. Thanks for that question, Scarlett, and great answer, Shannon. Owen, we're gonna add you in here. Owen, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. Thank you guys very much. My name's Owen Odiji. I'm the founder of Opulence Entertainment, a media entertainment company. So trying to traditionally get into film and TV, but leveraging technology. I currently have an original TV show that I'm currently shopping and I think will be sold by the end of this month, or excuse me, end of April. So that led me to institutionalize the creator process. And I decided to raise a seed round. I identified two strategic investors who I went to for $1 million each through my alumni school network. And as later on, I identified three more strategic investors, I then actually went to them, or I'm about to go to them and actually raise my seed round to 5 million. I guess I just wanted to ask, I'm still waiting on the first two to give me a decision. So my idea was I went to those two first. I think somebody said that earlier, but essentially, I was trying to de-risk them coming in. And so I wanted them to come together as a partnership and say, all right, you put in 1 million, I put in 1 million. And then, that's how I had my seed round. I guess what I wanted to ask was, as I'm approaching these other three strategic angel investors, how do I best optimize it or just best approach it with the momentum that I have these other two I'm waiting to give me a decision or at least put me into like term sheet or, something like that. While also then kind of putting the momentum on them to kind of get them to come on and, it's a whole virtuous cycle. I hope that question makes sense.
I have a very strong opinion on this. Until you have the money in the bank, nobody is committed. So this is also why you can't rely on anyone promising anything unless you have the money. So you can say, right, there's urgency of conversations, there's interest, but so there is momentum, but until it's in the bank, it's not committed. This is why I think it's all about talking to a lot of people and keeping like the calendar density, because that's how you get momentum. That's how you get urgency. That's how you also get the $1 million checks that now are like dwiddling their thumbs. Cause like, oh, well, he's like waiting for me to like come in on the round to actually feel the urgency to come in on the round. Like that's like my 2 cents. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah.
Oh my God, I
Very
wish that I
helpful.
didn't agree with this because that is so true. And I've heard from a lot of other founders and angels and just people in general that there's like more and more people like pretending to be investors these days. I don't know if it's like Shark Tank effect or what, but like there are definitely people out there who are like trying to talk the talk and cannot walk the walk and, like signing term sheets that their butt can't cash and like beware. So don't stop until it's in the bank. And I hate that I even have to say that, but it's really real.
Well, that wasn't my question.
Um,
I'm not
Sorry.
confused on telling them. Yeah, I'm not confused on if I have the money. I don't have the money. I know that, but I guess what I'm more asking is, how do you best approach like these next strategic angel investors that I've found?
Go with everything you have.
Sorry, what was that?
I would go with everything you have, right? Because again, if the first two fail, you have nothing, right? So then
yeah, I think the clean answer is to play off what what Larissa and everything was saying was what would you do if those first two investors that you talked about didn't exist? That's how you should approach this next investor. So go with that sort of strategy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's so Nick, I feel like we're dragging people along a little bit, and I want to make sure that I have a nice clean wrapper on this. I think these are super helpful conversations with kind of the community that we want to develop here, because people can listen to me, people can follow VCs on Twitter, but like it's really about the different experiences that founders who look very different, sound very different, are running very different companies, pattern matching against how you might like how your raise might be experienced. I think it was super valuable. So I wanted to make sure that I thank Demian, Shannon, Larissa, Nick for doing this. Like opening up what you had to go through, I think was very valuable to this whole cohort of people that have joined us today. I did want to just promote one last thing, because we will be doing more workshops in the next couple weeks. We have one coming up. It's our quarterly two-parter on fundraising strategy. So it starts on March 28th, and this day two is on Monday, April 1st. This is a free workshop. It's out there to put out the fundamentals of fundraising, and also make sure that people know about our program, Fundraise with Confidence, and our next cohort starts on April 10th, I believe, maybe 15th. I think April 15th, actually. So anyways, we would love to see you at this workshop. If you guys attended this, since you guys have attended this workshop, you will hear about our future workshops, more specific things around investor research, or our general strategy ones like this one. So we hope to see you there. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
you.